Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a special Evolution to Your Higher Self episode with myself, Harmony Robinson Stagg, your podcast host, and my co-host, Melissa Alves. Today we are going to be talking about a topic I have quite a bit of experience in, and that is burnout. Burnout is a bitch, and we want to break up with it. We want to help you guys break up with it too. So that's what we're going to be covering today. But first of all, we always love to start with our wins for the week. So Mel, over to you. What is your win for the week?
My win for the week is tackling my website. So it's just been something that's there that I've kind of put off, but I've just bit the bullet, focused, and got my pitter on and just getting it done. So I think that's a huge win for me this week. What about you, Hannah?
That is a huge win, website stuff. Oh my God, it's so overwhelming sometimes. My win, look, I was up at Noosa last week doing some acupuncture clinic work, and now I'm back getting all of my business of revenues into place before I fly out to New Zealand on Friday to go and teach the ISL breathwork over in New Zealand, and then finally flying to the other island to meet my family for a little holiday. So I think just managing all of these little moving pieces, and I must say without actually hitting complete burnout, which is good because I have been in burnout so many times. So I'm going to be speaking from experience in this episode. But I feel like I've held myself together really, really well. I'm also organizing a big summit, the Health and Wellness Business Leadership Summit. And there's a lot more work that goes into that than I anticipated. So yeah, all the different things flying at me, I feel pretty good. So that's my win.
That's a huge win, Harmony. Knowing you usually, when you have so much moving pieces, you tend to get overwhelmed and burnt out quite quickly, as we all do. But for you to sit there and I know how much moving pieces you've got on at the moment, plus you just finished like uni exams and flying to Melbourne and back has been huge. And for you not to be in burnout, that's like a huge win.
How did I do it? I'll share my secret.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I wanted to ask you on that. We were going to go straight into it. Are we going straight into it?
Yeah, let's just go straight into it, mate. Let's just go
straight into it. Given that you've experienced burnout so many times, I want to know what the physical symptoms of burnout is from an Ayurveda and women's health perspective.
Yeah, sure. So yes, like I said, have experienced burnout many times, which is sad to say because it's exactly what I help women with is managing their burnout and helping them trying to avoid getting into that state of burnout. So I think to start with, we'll define what burnout is because everyone might have their own different idea of what they call burnout. But basically, it's a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged stress, often stemming from their work or their personal life demands. And I mean, prolonged stress could be like having a chronic injury, chronic pain, like anything like that that's creating sort of stresses in your life can often lead to burnout because as we know, it's not just a physical response in our body, but there's an emotional and mental exhaustion component of it as well. And it's really characterized by feelings of overwhelm, depletion, and a sense of being unable to meet constant demands. Like you just feel like you are burnt out. From an Ayurvedic perspective, we know that this burnout phase can be like from a Vata person doing multiple things, a lot of different social activities, filling up their calendar and then realizing they can't do it all. And Vata gets depleted very, very easily and very quickly. So when they overexert themselves in all areas of their life, they feel extremely fatigued and very depleted. A Pitta person will usually push themselves to a state of burnout. They will be having a lot of work deadlines or trying to fit a million things in their schedule, like myself, and go to that extreme of trying to get everything done, please everyone, or maybe it's just the pleasing themselves by achieving the goals, but at the detriment of their own health. So they literally burn the fire and they burn it out. So they become into this complete burnout mode. And Kapha people, they can get burnout too. They're generally less likely because they're more of a steady sort of type of constitution. So they don't push themselves too hard, or they don't overexert themselves often, but they certainly can get there, and their burnout will be more reflective of just really lacking, like to that point where they've done enough or has done as much as they can for their constitution, where they feel that deep lack of desire or motivation to do anymore, and they're just exhausted, they're feeling very heavy, lethargic, want to lay in bed all day. So that's sort of like their way of presenting burnout. Going on the physiological symptoms of burnout, obviously there's that physical exertion. So that presents as deep fatigue, feeling really drained despite rest. Like sometimes we think, oh, we just need a couple of days rest, and we rest. But because we've been living on adrenaline to keep us going, especially those pittas and vatas pushing through, we finally rest, that adrenaline drops, that cortisol comes in, and we're just even more exhausted. And then often we get sick because it can lead to lower immunity. And so in the Ayurvedic and even the naturopathic world, we often refer to burnout as adrenal fatigue syndrome, because our adrenals have been producing so much adrenaline and cortisol, the feedback loop from the brain to the adrenals gets a little desensitized, and so it either overproduces or then produces not enough, and we then find ourselves in these very real physical elements and exhaustion. So another one is emotional distress, which can present as increased irritability, mood swings, and feeling of detachment. So I guess for a pitta, they're often very passionate about things, and they can become very detached to the work, and that's sort of a sign of, okay, they're really burning out, because what they used to love and be passionate about, they're now feeling really detached from. And for a vata, they get very detached to socializing and going out and having fun and creativity. And so when they don't feel like doing that anymore, it can be a late sign of burnout. And Kapha people, they're very attached to their relationships and like having that really deep connection with people. So sometimes they might detach themselves from people when they're feeling really drained and burnt out. Another symptom is cognitive impairment. So difficult concentrating, having memory problems, reduced cognitive function. So I know for me, when I'm in complete burnout, I like forget where things are. I feel very clouded. I don't know, like I've got to wake up in the morning and I'm like, what day is it? What am I doing today? And you just can't think clearly, because there is a real hormonal component to that as well, with the stress hormones taking over and maybe reducing some of our sex hormones. And so we get this cognitive impairment. Some other physical symptoms, we might be getting a lot of headaches. I get that as one of my signs. A lot of muscle tension, I get that. And I think that's also contributed to, when we're in high amounts of stress, we eat up those magnesium stores. Like our body is using, like going through our vitamin Bs, our magnesium. And so we get a lot of this muscle tension, a lot of GI issues. So stress to me goes straight to my gut. I'll get a lot of bloating. For some people, it might be loose stools. For some other people, it might be more constipation, depending on your constitution. And so gut issues can be a huge thing, because a lot of our serotonin, like our happy hormones, is created in the gut, and we have a vagal nerve that runs from the gut to the brain, and that vagal nerve, that stimulation, can be overexcited or underexcited and cause problems in the gut and producing like these beautiful happy hormones because of the neural pathway there. Let me see. Sleep disturbance is a huge one. Insomnia, you just can't get to sleep. Often people will explain their burnout as they have, so generally we meant to wake up and our cortisol is more high in the morning, because we meant to wake up with the cortisol that keeps us productive, and then it slowly bell curves down to the evening. But people with burnout, they often have really low cortisol in the morning, which makes it really hard for them to get up. But then they feel exhausted, but then towards the end of the day, they feel really wired. So they're tired, but wired, and then find it really hard to go to sleep because they have too much cortisol going on in their body at the end of the day, which is why it's so important to have bedtime routines and dinacharya, like an Ayurvedic dinacharya in the evening, to reduce those cortisol levels so that you can go to sleep. Difficulty falling and staying asleep. So that's a huge sign of burnout. And then obviously we have the hormonal effect of adrenal fatigue, as I mentioned, which will affect the sex hormones. This can also affect, like, it'll affect our cortisol imbalance, our metabolism, our immune system. It can affect our menstrual cycle because our hormones have been affected. So we might have either short cycles, we might have prolonged cycles, we may even go into amenorrhea. So hypothalamic amenorrhea is like stress-induced amenorrhea, meaning that the period just goes missing. The body's not feeling safe enough or has enough energy to even produce a period. And then we can also see impacts on our thyroid function. Stress can really influence the thyroid hormone, so that'll affect our metabolism and our energy levels. So when we get into this prolonged experience of burnout, what we'll see at the start, some people might like lose a lot of weight quickly because they've got that adrenaline. Then the cortisol kicks in, and then because the cortisol comes in to help with that inflammatory response in the body. But when it sticks around for a prolonged amount of time, cortisol is metabolic, meaning it breaks down muscle mass, so that also lowers down our metabolic rate. But it also affects our thyroid hormone, which governs our metabolism and the cooling and heating sensation of the body. So we can often feel very cool, and our energy levels, right? And so what we might find in someone who has been in prolonged burnout is they may lose weight initially, but then they start to put on the weight, and they'll put it on around the midsection, feel very fluid retention, because our adrenals also help govern fluid metabolism, and then find out they cannot lose weight because they're so exhausted they can't exercise. They'll stop eating, and then that'll cause another stress on the body. And the whole reason for their weight gain is this hormone imbalance going on. So I know I've just dumped a lot out there, but I've done a lot of work around burnout and hormones. It's my niche. It's what I work with women, and have done a lot of research into that. So I hope that this isn't just going whoo over your head, but I'll just finish it off that it, like I said, it disrupts our hormones, so it can mess up our cycles, but also libido. So libido is a huge thing, drop in libido, like just not interested in any sexual activity whatsoever. It's like the last thing on your mind. You've got no energy for it, and you've got no hormones supporting that need and want. So that is what I will say. Now I'm going to ask you your experience with burnout, and more from like that 5D energetics, that sort of mental emotional aspect of burnout.
Yeah, definitely. And just going back to all the amazing information, I want to go back and re-listen. And just to get people to understand that you may not see all this happen at one time. You're like, especially us women, we're doing all the things and we're doing it for a prolonged period of time. And then one day you wake up and like, well, nothing's changed in my life. Why am I having all these medical issues, or why am I not being able to sleep, or what's happening to my period? It's because you've been consistently burning out, that all of a sudden it just accumulates and accumulates, and all of a sudden you're like, but I haven't changed anything. My diet's the same, and I'm still working to 10 p.m. or 12 a.m. and doing all the things. Why is my body wigging out? It's because it's been consistently, you've been great at being consistent of burning out. So yeah, just want to let the listeners know, if you get into that point where like I had, and it will tie into my experience, when I had Elevate, I was studying the Ayurveda Alchemist. I was starting to be a life coach at the time. I was working in our business, our family business, and I was setting up my women empowerment center. It was a co-working space, a physical space, and I was still being a mum to 3, so drop off, pickups, all the things, right, and sports. And I felt that I wasn't burnt out. I was like, this is amazing. I'm going to bed early. I'm, doing all my morning routine, but I didn't know secretly. And this is what I go to say, like, you use the tools, like I was using breath work and all that kind of stuff, but it was really masking it. I was using it just to kind of bring myself into, that parasympathetic state, but it was still in my mind. Like I was still like, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this, I've got that. And I'm just bypassing by using breath work while I'm driving to get myself calm. But the to-do list was still there, you know, and it got to the point where I remember I opened it and I'm like, oh, I've got this beautiful routine. Look how I was able to juggle all this thing. I'm a fucking boss lady, you know. And I got to the point where I wasn't menstruating, like Harmony said, like your body just doesn't have the energy to menstruate. I was getting so sick. I remember I was so dizzy, I couldn't see. I was getting head spins, and I called up Harmony and booked in a session with her in her clinic and going, what is going on? And she's like, you're suffering adrenal fatigue, this and that. And I'm like, but no, like I do my breath work, I'm going to bed early, what is going on? It was because I was just taking too much on and absolutely burnt out. And burnt out to the point where it was very hard to show up to do business. It was very hard to get through the day. Then it started insomnia and all that kind of stuff. And I had to shut my business down on top of other things with the pandemic. But what it does is when you're getting to that point, you start having disempowering beliefs, right? Because you're usually in your power. And then you start having those disempowering beliefs. Oh, maybe it's not for me. Oh, this is too much. Then you start comparing yourself to other people. Oh, maybe it's for them. What are they doing? Why am I not doing it? And you start getting really down on yourself and start spiraling into this limited version of you that's just yucky and icky. And also what happens energetically, you're telling your body you're in this state, and you're telling your body, it's not safe, your nervous system, it is not safe to open, relax, and receive. And you're so disempowered and unable to step into your power. So, and then from an energetics point of view, like I said, you're closed off energetic to being open to receive that abundance. And then you're in that fear-based state of disempowering beliefs that keeps you stuck in that really 3D reality where everything is, time feels so long. You're not quantum leaping, you're not collapsing time, you're just stuck because it's fear-based. Then you're comparing, and it just goes in, like I said, this really yucky spiraling, you know, loop. But there is so many amazing things that you can do to get yourself back into alignment. And then it's really coming back into, okay, what is so important to me? Like you said, Harmony, the pitters get so burnt out, they get disconnected from their purpose, right? Like, what is, you know, coming back to your root, what is my purpose? What is important to me? What can I let go of? Where do I need to change my lifestyle, nutrition? Because once you get to that point, you're having to come back to a place where you're putting your healing first. And it's very hard, especially for the pitters, very hard to step away, because then you have that FOMO. If I step away from my business and take a week or 2 weeks or 3 months off, then I'm going to be not successful, you know, and it's bullshit, because this is the point where you need to come back and need to heal. And then from that place, just being really having strong boundaries on how you're showing up in business, what you're saying yes to, what you're saying no to. And I know, Harmony, you've gone through that this year, just saying no, ripping apart the business. And we cancelled a lot of our events because at the end of last year, we're like, oh my God, we've got all these amazing events and we can do all that kind of stuff. And that's how excited Pitta and Vata coming out. And then we went, oh my God, no, this is a lot. And if we do follow it, we could have done it, 2 Pittas together, but we know that it's going to lead to burnout. So I'd love for you, Harmony, on what were the kind of steps that you had to take to pull shit apart and say no, and just so now when you've got a few things going on, you're feeling so centered and you're not feeling burnt out.
Yeah, I think first of all, I had to get real with myself, and I had to get over myself, because I feel like I've always sort of have this conditioning as like you're strong, you can do it, you can carry on, like you can just keep pushing through and it's fine, and you've got to show up for people. And to some degree that is a part of my value, like showing up is a really big thing. But when I show up, I want to show up in integrity, and I want to show up like feeling like being able to inspire and empower. And if I'm not feeling that within myself, I can't do that, right? So I had to be really real with myself, and I had to look at where I have overstepped my mark, as in booked myself out, and took away the things that didn't truly feel in alignment with what I wanted to do and what I wanted to share. And maybe sometimes where we could merge some things. So I know, like, as you mentioned, we had a lot of events scheduled out for this year, but an event business on its own is huge. Like, it takes so much work, because not only are you organizing the events, you've got people that you're managing and dealing with, you're marketing events, like that's a whole business on its own. And for us, it's our side business. So, I mean, we really looked at where are we going to be able to give the most value, and where are we going to be able to show up, and how can we create just like freaking epic events but less of them. And that was like a whole off the plate. So I think, first of all, I had to look at my calendar and look at what I could get rid of and what I needed to or really wanted to keep. And then again, then I'd look at it with the what I needed to and what I really wanted to keep on my calendar, and ask myself, come on, girl, are you being serious? Do you really need all this, or really want or have to do all of this? And then maybe one or two of those things can go. And then I have to be really strong in not replacing those empty spaces with something else, because I am someone who almost craves of productivity. And so if I see like blank spaces, I'm like, oh, I could be doing that and that and that. And then I realize, no, that's what leads me to burnout, or like doing too many things. So that was one of the first steps. The second step was definitely my dinacharya, so my daily routine, making sure that it was like of utmost benefit to me, which for me, I have to move my body every day. So I wake up in the morning, I have my movement, and I take micro breaks through the day. So instead of like filling my calendar back to back with clients, I will always try to put like a 15-minute break between each client so that I can just recenter myself. And that was really important as well. So I wasn't just jumping from one thing to another. And I think having like those micro little rituals through the day where you can come back to your breath, you can reestablish yourself. I like to, as I mentioned before, like incense and essential oils just to sort of like get back into my body was really important. And then having like a support team. And this year I've really had to ask for help. And I've not been very good at that at all in the past. Like, I'm like, I can do it, superwoman. But I've really had to lean out. Like, I've had to get my mum up here last week to look after the boys, get them to school so I could go and do my acupuncture prac, things like that. Whereas, yeah, before I would have sort of like tried to just juggle it all. And it was impossible when I was in a, 2-3 hours away, but I would have like been stressing over it and not wanting to ask for help. And even like in my business, I've hired staff and things like that. So really looking at your support team, having friends where like even you, Mel, where I can be like, I'm feeling like this and that, and just like venting it and being able to say stuff sometimes just helps release all of that. So I definitely think having, looking at your calendar, rescheduling what really doesn't need to be there, having your own routine that's going to nurture yourself, and making sure that you're eating really healthy, good nutrition, because like I said, your body will zap up all the magnesium, vitamin B stores, all of that. So sometimes you really need to support your body in that way. And then have support, have your like support team around you, because that is so, so important for evolution and growth, and just knowing that other people can help you over like busy periods of time. So I think they're my 3 biggest tips of how I've been able to stay sane. What about you, Mel? What are your tips?
I think everything that you said, and I think it's just really coming back to understanding your unique mind-body constitution and planning out your day that really supports you, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I think I love what you did with the 15-minute increments break between clients, because we're needing circuit breakers throughout the day, right? Otherwise, we're going to overload our mind. So, and I love using the circadian rhythm of the Ayurvedic circadian rhythm, right? So you know that you've got the pitta time between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. That is when I know that pitta energy is firing in wherever it's just firing, right? And I harness that energy. That is where I do the my website thinking or my copywriting or the stuff that I just don't want to get done. And I put on beautiful music and I set 90 minutes and I just get it done, right? So it's really important to, again, understand yourself, understand the energy, the elements that are circulating throughout the times of the day, and really plan out your day to support you and harnessing on those energies and having the circuit breaker, right? So if you're a pitter, having that circuit breaker for like 15 minutes or half an hour where you go and do some cooling. If you're living by a water, go and walk around. If you've got a pool, jump in the pool or have a nice cool smoothie and doing some nice cooling breath work, right? Just balancing yourself. If you're a cuffer, you want some of that fire. So maybe go for a little jog or put some music on and start dancing and bringing up that fire, right? And then if you're a vata, you can go and do some nice grounding breath work or some beautiful grounding music with lighting some incense and doing some slow kind of movements, or sitting in a beautiful what is that word where you just lay down, savasana, and you lay down, that meditation?
Yeah.
Just lay down and have a nap, maybe. You know, the Vata.
I love legs up the wall as well. Like if your Vata is really good, like just laying down with the legs up the wall drops you into that parasympathetic state. You just chill out, like just, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And then knowing, you know, because we're juggling all the things, when is it time for, I've got to put the phone down and I need to switch off, right? Because if you're working in an organization for someone, you've got 5 o'clock shut down and you walk out and you shut down. And I know it's hard to say for business owners, but you've got to shut off. You've got to know when that phone goes off and you're switching off, you know, and especially us now after the pandemic, a lot of people working from home. So just changing up the energy, even if you play some music and you move your body just to snap out of that work zone and step into the, you know, relaxed house mom, got to do the cooking, whatever mode. Just really intentionally looking at your day, getting that calendar out, and then just reworking your diary, because you can create a business or you can create the day any way you want. Fuck how people say it is, right? You create that is your day in how it's going to support you. So after this episode, go open up your calendar and just redo your day and put in those little circuit breakers in there.
Love it. Such good tips. And if you don't have a calendar and you aren't planning out your days, then maybe that's why you're in burnout, because you haven't got any structure. And so Vadas, I'm talking to you, maybe you won't feel so overwhelmed and in your head if you actually had like some simple strategies and listing it all out, because I know that always makes me feel better, because once you've written it down, you can go to bed and know that it's all there for you to revisit the next day in the morning. You know exactly what you got to do. You can get straight onto it. I find a lot of the times burnout, it might not even be from like a pitta will do that and then overdo it and push. Whereas sometimes a vata won't have the structure. And so they're constantly thinking and they get into that loop of, oh, what do I do next? I don't know what I do next. They get stressed, they get anxious, and then they like stay up late trying to do all the things they forgot they had to do. And that can be really detrimental as well. And I know we've talked about this on another episode, so go check out our episode on boundaries. But I think people who don't set boundaries with themselves, like Mel said, have a knockoff time, especially if you work for yourself. You have to put that phone away. You have to pack up the computer, the desk, whatever. Set boundaries with yourself and then those around you. And if you're not articulating that, people will overstep your boundaries. It's not their fault, it's your fault. And that will lead to burnout. So I think, yes, that is our quick little episode on burnout. Burnout is a bitch, but we're breaking up with it, and we are inviting you to break up with burnout too. So what are you going to do today to prevent you getting into burnout? Because prevention is better than cure. And if you feel like you're already there, then go and do some of the tips that me and Mel have shared. First of all, get rid of some shit out of your calendar that you don't need or that you don't want to do. Be real. Like, will the world collapse if you don't do everything on that calendar? No, it won't. So be real with yourself. Get rid of it. Make sure that you are caring for yourself. Put yourself into a routine in the mornings, in the evenings, that's going to nurture yourself and drop you into that parasympathetic. Even if in the evenings, all you do is put your legs up the wall and lay there with an eye pillow on for 5 minutes before bed, just breathing slowly. Like, start there. And then, of course, find your support network around you. So find people who are going to be supportive for you, may be able to help out with your task, may be able to help out with the kids, may be able to help out with decision making, because decision fatigue is a real thing as well. If you're the person always making the decisions in the family or the relationship, have a chat with your partner, have a chat with your family about that. And I love Mel's circuit breakers. They are so important. Like, they are preventative and curative. So make sure you're getting some circuit breakers in throughout your day, whatever that is for you. And it might be just doing some more fun things, more creative things. I love the like get up and do a jiggle and a dance. But that is it from us. I hope you are inspired to break up with burnout, everybody. Lots of love. If you have any questions for us, you can find me on Instagram at Harmony Inspired Ayurveda, or Melissa at I am Melissa Alvers. And if you want us to cover any topics, please let us know. Reach out to us on Instagram, shoot us a message. We love all of the feedback that you guys give us, so we really appreciate that. And we look forward to chatting with you guys next time.
See you guys.
Bye.